Miyembro ka ba ng isang youth organization? May mga proyekto ba kayong nagawa o ginagawa ngayon para magbigay suporta sa mga kababayan natin sa panahon ng pandemya? Pagkakataon nyo nang sumali sa Search for 10 Accomplished Youth Organizations Awards o TAYO. Ngayong ika-18 taon ng TAYO, nais namin bigyang pagpupugay ang bayanihan ng kabataang Pilipino. Bisitahin lamang ang tayoawards.net/jointayo, fill up ng form at isubmit. Maaari kayong mag-submit ng maraming entries hanggang August 18, 2020. Ang mga tatanghaling awardee ay makakatanggap ng 50,000 pesos na SEA Grant mula sa Coca-Cola Foundation Philippines at San Miguel Corporation. Ano pang hinihintay nyo? Tayo na! Miyembro ka ba ng isang youth organization? May mga proyekto ba kayong nagawa o ginagawa ngayon para
Gisingin na ang diwa, salubungin ang umaga. Gisingin na ang diwa, salubungin ang umaga. Handa ka na ba? Masdan mo ang daluyong, umaagos ang pagtulong sa kapwa, sa kapwa. May sinag sa iyong puso na hindi na maitatago, ang silong mo'y lisanin na. Liwanag mo'y sisigla kung tayo'y magsasama-sama sa lupa nating naghihingalo. Tayo ang pagbabago, sabay nating suyuin, mailap na pagkakaisa sa pagsikat ng bagong araw. Buong pusong isigaw na tayo ang pagbabago. Yakapin ang pagkakaiba. Liwanag mo'y sisigla kung tayo'y magsasama-sama sa lupa nating naghihingalo. Tayo ang pagbabago, sabay nating suyuin, mainap na pagkakaisa sa pagsikat ng bagong araw. Buong pusong isigaw na tayo ang pagbabago, sabay nating suyuin, Mainap na pagkakaisa sa pagsikat ng bagong araw. Buong pusong isigaw na tayo ang pagbabago. Tayo ang pagbabago. Liwanag natin iisa, kaya tayo nang magsama-sama sa lupa nating naging alo. Tayo ang pagbabago, sabay nating suyuin. Mailap na pagkakaisa sa pagsikat ng bagong araw. Buong pusong isigaw na tayo ang pagbabago, sabay nating suyuin. Mailap na pagkakaisa sa pagsikat ng bagong araw. Buong pusong isigaw na tayo ang pagbabago. Tayo ang pagbabago. Tayo ang pagbabago.
Hello everyone! Good evening! Welcome to our third episode of Tayo Talks Online, Friday Fam Nights. So, if you're new here, Friday Fam Nights is our usual take nung if you would still remember our pre-quarantine, kumbaga, practices na every Friday we ask our friends or even our family over coffee, over dinner, just to chill and talk about things that matter. Conversations on random stuff that possibly relate to us in a level na, oh nga no, like you get to ask questions that might be interesting to some or might be interesting to you. So that's our whole take on this Tayo Talks Online. So for tonight, we encourage you to please join us in this conversation. Chat us, comment on our stream below. So if you have reactions, if you have questions to me, to my co-host later, I'll introduce you, and even to our guests, guys. We encourage you, comment nyo lang dyan, say hi to us. We encourage you to do that. And also, if you have friends, if you have families who might be interested to join in, the best thing to do is start a watch party. 'Di ba? Parang very Facebook friendly naman itong stream natin. So, do that right now if you want to join in with your friends and family. So, for tonight, I'll be sharing this stream. I'll be co-hosting tonight's episode with a very good friend. So, on our first episode, I was with Carl and Senator Bam. On the second episode, I was amongst tayo alumni and friends and Compercy. Tonight, I'm with a good friend and another youth advocate. So, I'll just introduce you and say hi to my good friend. Hey, Von!
Hey! Hi everyone! Hi Trisha! Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. And again, thank you so much for having me tonight in our third episode dito sa Tayo Talks. I'm really looking forward to this episode kasi excited ako sa conversation na to. And actually guys, so mga nanonood po ngayon, ako na actually yung pumilit kay Trisha na pala, Trisha, gusto ko gusto ko naman maging part ng Tayo Talks kasi this is a really interesting way to really get to know our guests and young people who have been part of our family for a long time as well. And alam ko Trish na you had past 2 episodes na before and alam kong sobrang ganda ng conversations natin in our past episodes. And sa episode 1 nakasama natin of course si Senator Bam Aquino. So ano yung mga napag-usapan natin on that episode?
So on our first episode, we talked about bakit ba may tayo? Parang why start a Tayo Awards Foundation? And kumbaga, may difficult question kami kay Senator Bam that time na parang, are we still relevant in a time of social media influencers, in a
Yes.
time of social media following, etc.
Mhm.
Are youth organizations still relevant? So, my takeaway on that episode was yung at this time of pandemic or even several issues happening all over, not just in the Philippines but all over the
Yeah.
world, we could always start something. And
Yes, yes.
in starting something, we have to look for other people who are also doing something. Like
Correct.
favorite niya yan, yung Lost Stars
Yes,
na
yung line sa
Adam
Lost. Are
Levine.
we are we just lost stars trying to find each other something on the light? Nakalimutan pala yung lyrics. Pero yeah, I remember that part kasi favorite line niya. Yeah, and actually
Yun.
may one good line din siya na mentioned during that episode, which is if we look back into the historical events that happened in the Philippines, talagang malaki yung ginagampan ng part ng kabataan. And that's really
True.
important for us to really take note na malaki yung part
Mhm.
na ginagawa natin. And of course, Trish, yung napaka-exciting nyo din na episode, yung episode 2, where you talked about so many things about young people, basically a youth situationer. So, gaano
True.
ka-exciting yung episode na yun and ano yung mga takeaways?
Sobrang exciting. When I actually reviewed my notes and the stream mismo to prepare some cards and just to synthesize the conversation, nahirapan ako. Kasi parang
Yeah.
parang tweetable lahat, parang gusto ko gawing bookmark to, parang gusto ko gawing design sa wall. Parang sobrang juicy, kumbaga. Sobrang juicy no episode with Percy, with Val, and with Jap. Even
Yeah.
with Jai. Jai was supposed to be with us last week, pero dahil sa maulan, last week sa Lanao, medyo nahirapan sa internet. But my takeaway on that episode was from Val, the Steel's lines. Sabi
Yeah.
niya, we have to turn our heartbreak into social good. Parang, diba, parang it's so simple. Everyone has their own heartbreaks. Love life man yan, or academic, or whatever. We all have our own heartbreaks. And for him, it's the best platform to start a social good.
Correct. And actually, maganda rin yung na-mention niya na parang if we start recognizing our emotions and using these emotions to drive us into the things that we're passionate about, maganda yung kakalabasan natin as a
Yeah.
sector. And Trish, so napag-usapan na natin yung youth situationer, yung the reason why tayo is here, and we are engaging to a lot of young people. Sobrang exciting nung third episode natin tonight kasi we're talking about the role to, kumbaga, and the importance of young people. And at the same time, how different generations view it. Kumbaga.
Yeah.
Kaya excited na tayo ipakilala yung mga guests natin tonight. So Trish, do the honors na to introduce our guests for tonight.
Yeah. So our guests for tonight are two very active and important voice in various issues happening all over and around us. So they made their rounds. If you're just like me and Von, who, alam mo yun, normal tambay on social media, you'd probably seen them echo their voice and their opinions on several issues. And not just on social media, but on national news also. So this father and daughter tandem champions causes close to their heart. Kumbaga, hindi to, alam mo yun, parang kabuti na lang na, ay, okay. They're very passionate with everything that they do. Kakie having started Iha Ako movement, and Senator Kiko, actually isa tayo sa resulta ng passion projects ni Senator Kiko being a co-founder of the Tayo Awards Foundation. And so
Yes,
without
correct.
further ado, let's welcome Kakie and Senator Kiko Pangilinan. Hello po!
Yay! Hello po, good evening po. Sen,
Hello po,
Kiko,
good evening
and
po.
Kaki.
Hi, Bo.
Ayan, oh my gosh. Hello po, Sen, and hello, Kaki. Okay, 3 seconds to, fanboy. Joke lang. Hello po. Hello po, good evening po, sir, and good evening, Kaki. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, no. And I know that this is a rare moment, no, kasi it's very rare for you guys to be in an interview together. So very thankful po kami that you are here with us tonight. So gusto po namin kumustahin muna kayo. How are you and how are you coping in this time of crisis? Ano po yung new normal kumbaga na ginagawa nyo ngayon?
Ikaw muna.
Well, siyempre hindi madali. Stressful din dahil maya't maya nakakarinig ka ng balita na yung kaibigan mo may sakit o kaya yung kaibigan ng kaibigan mo o kaya yung kaibigan ng kapatid mo. No? So it's really very stressful. But at the same time, we have to try our best to, to strike some normalcy despite the abnormal situation. So that it's part of coping. Diba? So tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang mga Zoom meetings, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang pagbabasa, paghahanda, may mga hearings pa rin sa Senado. So
Right.
We try to make it as normal as best we can given the difficulties.
Yeah. How about you, Kakie?
I think it's such a privilege to be able to socially distance to the extent that we have, like to be able to quarantine in itself. I think it's a privilege kasi diba ang dami-dami mga Pilipino na frontliner ang mga pamilya nila, like their mga magulang nila frontliner, nawalan na ng trabaho, etc. So I think that it's while you recognize that it is a privilege to have been able to isolate ourselves to this extent, like with our families, it's also you also can't lie naman and not acknowledge na of course it takes a toll on your mental health, diba? And I think that we all like recognize our limits and we all need to recognize when to take a break and when to take a rest, diba? Like from stuff like that.
Yeah. Pero in a way, maganda rin po kasi you're spending time together like everybody else. And actually, medyo hopeful po talaga for us to see you guys both on the screen kasi you're such an inspiration to many young people out there.
Yeah,
Thank you for the kind words.
And as a family, it's really nice to see not just Sen Kiko being a vocal voice of several sectors in society, not just farmers, but a lot more. And Kakie being a active voice for young people. And, diba, parang being, kumbaga, ano na ako, Sen Kiko and Kakie. Speaking of family, kumbaga, na this is not the first time, Sen Kiko, that you shared the platform of Taya Awards Foundation with your family. If you remember, Kakie, even Ate Casey, your Ate Casey has been a judge in the Taya Awards Foundation way back Tayo 5, etc.
Yeah.
So, Sen Kiko, ito po, natanong ko to kay Senator Bam nung first episode. Ang sabi niya, kayo daw po talaga yung kuya niya when you started the foundation. Parang sabi kasi namin, siya yung kuya namin eh. Sabi niya, hindi, ang kuya natin si Senator Kiko. Parang how does it feel like to have an 18-year-old foundation? Parang starting it as a passion project. Now, 18 years after, we're still here.
Yeah.
So, pala.
Yeah.
Debutante na po.
That was one of our first projects when I was elected in 2001. Alam mo yung 2001, people power to yun. And talagang ang information on and yung polling on, 9 out of 10 people who went to EDSA DOS were young people. So sabi natin, talagang yung kapangyarihan at the power, youth power is really awesome. Diba? And wala atang makakamatch sa youth power pagka naninindigan at kumikilos. So that's why we said, kailangan let's bring people power to, the next level, which is organize, get involved in reshaping communities. So that's why we started in 2000. So 18 years, 2002, yung ating unang search. Actually, unang awarding. Awarding yun. But the search started in 2001. I was elected in 2001, so we did a search. I would have been happy to have 40 or 50 entries. In that first search, we had over 120 or 130 entries already. So doon ko kita mo, ang kabataan, hindi yan apathetic, hindi yan indifferent. Pagka nakita niya yung chance na gumawa ng paraan, gagawa ng paraan yan, basta merong oportunidad.
Correct, yeah.
And 18 years later, parang merong magdedebut na.
Oo. May dalaga na po kayo, Sen.
Nadagdag na po kami sa inyong mga dalaga.
That 18 years, talagang I judged I think 10 or 11 or 12 years, no? And nung nag full-time na ako sa farming and sabi ko, Bam, ikaw na muna dyan. Ha? Anyway, diba? So siya naman ang kaya nga ako ang kuya ni Bam. Diba? At
Correct. Yeah.
Bam naman ang kuya ninyo. So,
Yes.
yun. So 18 years and up until today, totoo pa rin yung walang kapaguran.
Kapaguran, yes.
Ang kabataan, hindi nauubusan ng idea, hindi nauubusan ng energy, hindi nauubusan ng creativity. Kaya talagang tuloy-tuloy. In fact, we reach 18 years precisely because young people have so much energy.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, speaking of energy, innovation, and creativity, and bilang nag-reminisce na tayo dito, Sen, Kiko, and Frankie, meron kami actually throwback video dito na ipapalabas ni Trisha.
Yes.
Baka lang maalala nyo po kung anong video ito. And then we'll
Let's
try
watch it.
Let's watch it first.
Hi, I'm Frankie, a member of the Moving Art Camp. You might be wondering just what TMAC is. Well, what we did was, we went to Hospicio de San Jose, an orphanage that's very close to the group's heart. We entertained 25 kids aged 6 to 12 and provided them with art materials and gave them activities and taught them crafts. All crafts involve nationalism and being proud as a Filipino. Why don't we meet the other group members now? Got to meet other kids and they're really nice.
I did like it very much due to the great eccentric feeling upon its children. I also did enjoy the atmosphere. All the kids accepted us nicely, politely, and all this. According to this book, TMAC is totally awesome.
We're an organization that helps kids know about Philippines, national country. I can't say Philippine national country. Philippine national symbols. I guess. Want to join TMAC? Contact me at my email address. Thanks.
And alright.
There we go.
Correct. Naalala ni Sen Kiko. Yes, tama po, Sen Kiko. I think they received the Bida Award, if I'm not mistaken. The Bida Award.
Be the Kids Award, yes.
They were the youngest entry ata.
Yeah.
5 ata sila nun, biro mo.
Correct. So Kakie, how was that experience for you? If you can still remember, how was that experience for you?
Oh my God, my voice was so high. Naalala ko lang kasi yung pagka-edit ko nun, gamit ko pa yung laptop ni Daddy. Tapos, diba, I was like using your little MacBook Air, but then back then na wala. Hindi naman I thought it was like the best video ever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was grade 5, grade 6 siguro. No? I had
Grade
bands
5, no,
towards the
grade
end of it. So.
5th grade yan.
Oh my goodness.
So they went to the show, they did the art camp there, and then they did it, and they submitted the entry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, ha? Buti na ugat pa ninyo yun sa mga baul ninyo.
Yeah.
Opo.
Opo. May archive pa ba? May database pa naman tayo.
when I heard of it with the past secretariat, we keep in touch with our past secretariat. So I was chatting them. Then I checked the video. Tapos parang sabi ko, nandito ba si Frankie? I was looking at the photos. Then same comment with Kakie. With all your videos now, medyo malalim kasi yung register ng voice mo. But on the video, parang ko, okay, this is Kakie way back.
Way
Yes,
back.
But it only goes to show na talagang ever since, no, kahit nung bata pa si Kaki, innate na talaga sa kanya yung pagsasalita and helping other people. So nakakatuwa. Actually, yung mga yung comment section po natin, sobrang cute na cute sila sa'yo. Ganyan. So they're saying na you're so cute and bata pa lang daw talagang very articulate na. Now, going to the more serious siguro no, na conversation that we're gonna have tonight. Actually, Sen, we just want to ask the two of you then, most particularly for this question, si Sen Kiko. Like, at this point, do you feel like there are similarities and differences of the different generations of young people during your time and during this time? And kung meron po, ano siguro yung mga similarities and differences na yon na nakikita nyo in our society now?
Siguro malaking pagkakaiba yung digital savviness. Yun, difference yun. Because right now, grabe ang reach ng digital technology.
Yes.
Somebody described it as at an instant you have scale, you have speed, and you have scope.
Yep.
Diba? At one instance, diba? So grabe. So and then pinaka-digitally savvy yung kabataan ngayon. So that would be a difference, no? Kaming mga thunders nga, dapat matuto dito sa digital technology na ito. Kung hindi, talagang we will be left behind nga, in terms of being cutting. And as public leaders, we have to be cutting edge. We have to be techno-savvy. We have to make sure that we are, our people deserve the best in terms of service and leadership. And therefore, in digital technology, kailangan namin magbahabol. Pero yung mga kabataan ngayon, talagang sabi yan. So that's the difference, no? Similarities of the youth, I think it will never go away. The energy, the passion, the idealism, di ba? Sabi ko nga, napaka-low maintenance ng mga youth. Bakit? Minsan, isang beses lang kumain sa isang araw, pwede. Kaya,
yes, sir.
Tapos minsan, isang oras lang ang tulog, pero, di ba, parang ang ganda ng energy.
Opo. Mahilig po kami sa 3 a.m. thoughts.
Yes.
Di ba? So much energy, so much passion, so much creativity, di ba? And so much zeal. That's why, ever since, historically na yan, pag yung kabataan at estudyante, tumaya, nanindigan, kumilos, it can only mean social change. It can only mean the young people ever since, up until today, dahil nga catalysts for change. Kayo ang mitya ng pagbabago.
Correct. Siguro from the sense of Kaki naman, no, do you feel like there are changes, kumbaga, in our generation? Because I believe like we all belong to the same generation now. Or are there any characteristics or qualities na you think na minana din natin from the other generations talaga up to this point?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, because I think that the common dialogue right now definitely is parang history is repeating itself when it comes to current events and things like that. And you see a lot of that pattern everywhere. But I truly believe that the digital scope of things has really added a new sort of dimension, diba, to the discussion. Kasi yun nga po, diba, lagi kong sinasabi na parang kapag boomer ang nasa Facebook, it's like they can't really discern between fake news as easily, for example. Whereas kapag generation natin, isang tingin pa lang, it's like, like one glance, one glimpse at a single piece of news, an article, alam na natin kaagad kung peke o hindi. And I think I think that those are inherent characteristics. Like I wouldn't call it a skill, because I don't think it's something that's necessarily like that was taught to us. Clearly, I think that it's just like an inherent quality that's risen from our time spent online because we were raised around that kind of, that kind of environment.
Kumbaga, yes, go.
No, but I think that it's like very, parang naging intrinsic na siya. It's not anymore something that it can necessarily be taught to us, but it's things that we just learned along the way. And so I think that that's where our advantage lies. But at the same time, I like to say that it's like we have to still have that certain level of respect, obviously, for the older generations, because their experiences are precisely because their experiences are different from ours. But then therefore, that respect also has to go back in a certain way. Diba? It has to be mutual.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, ang ganda nga po nung nasabi niyo kasi parang ang takeaway, it may seem like we are on a different playing field at this point, pero yung adaptability ng kabataan talaga never nawawala. Parang kung ano man yung tawag ng panahon, talagang sasagot at sasagot yung
Yes.
kabataan. So, that's really wonderful to hear from your answers.
So, San Kiko, parang knowing these similarities, differences, and that, kumbaga, everlasting quality of young people, parang, how does that help you in parenting? Like, you were once a youth leader, but then knowing that similarity and difference of quality of young people, how does that help you parent Kaki, Miel, and Casey? And even Miguel.
Well, pretty much, sabi ko nga now, with Frankie, now, naintindihan ko yung pakiramdam nung tatay ko. Nagpamarcha ko sa kalye ng panahon ni Marcos. I guess, having been a youth leader myself, and a student leader myself, my father was also a student leader in his college days, but he was noon 50s, hindi pa uso yung activism. Ang uso nung 50s, ROTC. Kasi
Correct.
after the war yun, di ba? So,
Yes.
American, Uncle Sam, di ba? And my father was actually core commander of the UP ROTC.
Oh, wow.
So, nung panahon pa na maganda pa yung image noon, before martial law. Before the declaration of martial law. So, he was a student leader. My mother was also a student leader. So, parang they supported us and encouraged us to exercise our leadership skills. My family, puro mga leader din ang nangyari sa mga kapatid ko. So when I see Frankie and she has leadership skills and kailangan supportahan at alam namin o alam ko na yung ganong klaseng leadership abilities, exercising that is good training. It's good for, the full development of the individual and the growth. So, and I taught in the Ateneo for 7 years. So part of my predisposition is to be a teacher. And so, so yun, alam ko this is good for her. I mean, her full development as a human being. And therefore, we support.
Yeah.
May current debate po kasi dyan.
Thank you so much for that, Senki. Actually, very heartwarming also to hear that coming from a parent. So I hope all the parents who are watching now can really take a lot from that answer kasi it's really important, tulad nga nasabi ni Senki ko, to allow our children to, discover themselves by their own experiences and stuff like that.
And to even
Actually,
to grow into their leadership skills also. Na parang, alam mo yun, they take up their own space more than us having taken up our space as parents. Our kids also could take up their own space.
Correct. Actually, which leads us to our question to Kaki naman. Kasi, of course, Kaki growing up with, sabihin na natin, hindi naman ordinary parents talaga. Kasi si Tita Shawi, si Miss Sharon, and then you have public servant dad, si Senator Kiko. Do you feel like any pressure siguro growing up? Considering na, okay, these are my parents. Do I have to live up to a certain standard? And stuff like that. Ganun.
I mean, I definitely think so. It's like, it would be kind of a lie to say that no. Because I think that even if not necessarily intentionally set there, those standards would still exist. But everywhere around you, it's like, who would always tell me na parang, oh, dahan-dahan ka lang, or dapat, like, be sure to obey, kailangan behave ka lagi kasi mga magulang mo yan, di ba? It's not for you, in other words, it's like for the name, etc. Like, a lot of people tell me that, which I think that didn't necessarily approve of. But at the same time, it's like that kind of mentality of having to, I don't think there was ever pressure from my parents themselves to have to live up to a certain standard. They've always been very supportive of our own aspirations, our own goals and things. But I think that it's not, yeah, so it wasn't necessarily from my parents themselves, but more from like people around us, people around them, and people who had certain expectations for us, their kids, based on exactly who they were. And like a lot of the time, it's like I'll still get questions like, "Oh, are you gonna enter showbiz or are you gonna enter politics?" And it's like those are the only questions that I ever get asked now about myself, diba? Parang it's still limited by who my parents are, which is so interesting to me. Not, I don't get like offended naman or anything, parang nagsanay na dun. But it's just interesting to think about how they shaped so much of my identity to everybody else, but not necessarily my identity to me.
We don't. I don't talk to her about whether she's going to be involved someday or not. That's up to her. I mean, it's she'll find her own. She should. Find her own space. Whatever. Kung saan siya komportable at nasa ng puso niya. Diba? Yun. In fact, yung tatay ko nga, ayaw akong mag-activista eh. Diba?
Yes.
Ang ibang henerasyon yun.
Yep.
Pero na-realize niya after a while, hindi pala, pinis din pala ulo dito. So,
mana lang sa kanila.
Oo nga.
Mana.
So, ganun lang. We're just here to guide them.
Yep.
Diba? And to provide them advice. And let them spread their wings. Let them fly.
Correct. Napakaganda po.
Since niyo naman na, Sen Kiko, na-touch niyo na yung the next question that we have would be, do you see yourself in your daughter? Like, nabanggit niyo na po na you're a student leader before, you fight for causes, even when you were still a student. How do you see yourself in your daughter today? She's,
aside from the physical.
When she was a toddler, my older brother said, Mimi, well, si Sharon also, kamukha ni Kiko. Ang tawag sa kanya ng older ang tito niya. Si Little Kiko, si Kiklet. Kasi di ba? Anyway, I guess her her political leanings, her concerns about the country, I can see that. Her concerns about public policy, public. Saka mahilig siya magbasa. Sa bagay, si Sharon din mahilig magbasa. Pareho kami. Pero minsan, inuwi niya sa bahay galing sa opisina ko, sa library ko, sa office, may private library ko. Inuwi niya yung civil code na reviewer ni Paras, Justice Paras. Sabi ko, ba't mo inuwi yan? She's interested in reading. And leadership, I guess. But Sharon is also a leader in her field, di ba? But ito nga, nabanggit ko ito nung grade 1 siya, grade 2. Merong leader of the week.
No, huwag mo nang kwento.
So, leader of the week. So,
okay, spill.
Stated every week, di ba? Her classmates, they are assigned leader of the week. So, when her week was coming up, she was talking about it. She was saying, we had the leader of the week, was doing this, was doing that. So I could see she was interested.
Yeah.
So, and then her turn came, leader of the week. I think it was second grade. So after the week was over, she had a lot of, every day she would have stories about being leader. So in the end, I gave her 2 questions. What did you like about being leader of the week? Well, I get to order people around.
And that is why
Yun pala yung dahilan.
What don't you like about being leader of the week? Sabi niya, it's only 1 week.
po yung dahilan bakit hindi
Ayaw niya ng 1 week lang. Gusto niya mas marami.
It's
Power.
May ganyan story din kami, Sen Kiko and Kakie. Pero ano po yun? Sa cleaners. Sa classroom.
yung leader, So yun. So doon pa lang, you could see, she had leadership skills.
No, be it.
Yeah, and in high school, she was in the student council pretty much all of high school.
Yeah. Actually, may maganda po akong gusto sanang hugutin mo from what you said earlier, Sen Kiko. Kasi parang you mentioned na you and your wife usually talk about these things. Do you also feel any pressure na parang you see your children growing up na very outspoken, very, honest and opinionated on so many things? Parang may pressure po ba as a parent when you see your children na ganun sila?
Well, syempre, you'd like to think na, you'd like to hope, that her own political views will not clash with yours, di ba?
Yeah.
So, thankfully, wala pa namang ganung matinding debate.
Yeah.
I mean, in politics, we were preparing to politics.
Yeah. Okay. Now po actually yung gusto naman namin tanungin. Marami po kasi nagsasabi and I think Kakie would agree on this. A lot of people, especially those who come from older generations, invalidate the struggle of young people now. A lot of them are saying na, you're having it so easy na kasi because of the so many things that you have at this point. And parang, sinasabi po nila na hindi nyo na magagawa yung mga nagawa before dahil ang dami nyo nang ginagawa, ang dami nyo nang, parang masyado na kayong distracted on so many things and ang dami nyo nang pinapaniwalaan. Do you feel like parang may impact po yun for young people in, organizing or like doing collective actions, organizing a movement kasi we're so distracted na on so many things. We focus on so many issues na kasi we have access to those things. Do you feel like that can hinder us from doing what you've done in your generation?
The question is for you. It's a commentary about your generation being.
I think that
there's information overload. Maybe
I don't think it's. Let me put it this way. I think we have more information at our disposal, but as we get older, as I get older at least, I learn how to kind of limit it in a way that's more accessible to me, and limit it in a way that I'm able to handle it. Like as I learn more about the world, I'm also learning more about my own limits. And so I think that as we get, like, as I challenge those limits sometimes, and as I kind of break certain boundaries, I also learn up to hanggang saan ako pwede, diba? It's like where does boundaries go? Where can my efforts best help? Like truly help? Where can my own efforts truly make a difference, diba? Because if you spread yourself too thin among too many things, then baka wala nang matulungan. So it's like it's fruitless, it's void. So I think that as you challenge those boundaries of like knowing where you can go and what you can do and recognizing what you're able to do within your means, I think that it's a beautiful thing that like my generation is kind of more aware about multiple things at once. Maybe it's not spread ourselves out too thin, but I think that awareness in itself allows us to kind of find a niche in the scale of things that we're able to target more specifically na parang, to kaya ko to. As opposed to, like, what I mean, like lesser issues that we wouldn't otherwise have been aware of.
Yeah, every generation will have its own set of, challenges, own set of obstacles, hurdles. So I hope in the end I will trust the human spirit to ultimately prevail over all these challenges. Right na yung youth today.
Yeah.
And it's the very thought of Kakie na, having all these access to information, knowing more causes, not just here in our own backyard, the Philippines, but also with what's happening all over the world. We have easy access to that as this generation. But what really struck me, and I found it really beautiful, is that as we know more, we also get to identify our limits. But currently, the even the notion that mental health has only become a thing in our generation, it's both problematic na they don't parang other generations don't see that as an issue in their generation, but it's also nice that it's been put to light in this generation kasi
Yeah.
knowing all these parang alam mo yun parang the usual meme na parang 2020 can you please stop na parang ang daming nangyari in a matter of months. And young people today, in their knowledge of mental health, they get to see their limits also. So,
Yep.
yeah, thank you, Kaki, for reminding us of that, that each of us would have to pace ourselves. Even if we know everything, even if we are passionate with a lot of stuff, we also have to pace ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for that.
speaking of like being passionate in a lot of stuff, I think it's okay to dive into like certain advocacies that the father and daughter tandem who are with us tonight, no, siguro, are having at this point. Siguro we'll start with Kaki kasi if I remember correctly, no, a couple of months ago, tama ba? I think it was just like few months ago. You started a movement, basically triggered, not really started, but triggered a movement, kumbaga, where women, older, younger generations of women started talking about an important issue, which is about rape. And ano yung na-feel mo, or ano yung nag-trigger sa'yo why you spoke up during that moment?
I think it was an overwhelming feeling of, kasi nga po, diba, it was a reply to me that kind of sparked the hashtag, if anything. And I think that to me it was just this feeling of, you know, that meme that goes disappointed but not surprised, where it was like it was so disappointing to see that someone like Filipinos can still be so loud about that issue, like so boldly victim shaming online in public
Yeah.
in a public context. Like the fact that public figures are still able to do that without getting, without getting the backlash that's ordinarily provided to other public figures who say that elsewhere, diba? Like Western media, etc. Like I think that that's really what very much disappointed me, because I know that there are a lot of people, I guess, who think like that. But then in the Philippines, I think comparatively we're still a very conservative country, and so
Yeah.
like in a way, it's like I understand that the dialogue still exists, but that doesn't justify it. It doesn't justify
Yeah.
that it's still done. It doesn't justify that it's still there and that it's still enduring amidst everything that's going on in the world, diba? Like we're still gonna blame the victims. We're still gonna say na sa mga damit na babae yun, diba, etc. And I think that it was really bad too that it was targeted towards women specifically, because the truth is that
Yes.
there are a lot of men who are victims of sexual assault, and
Yeah.
who are victims of things like that aren't usually commonly asked. I don't believe a man has ever been asked what he was wearing, diba? Like after an incident of that caliber. So yeah, I think that it was just something in me was really just like wait, because when I first retweeted and I like the Lukban police station post, and when I first said that we need to stop teaching girls how to dress and start teaching people not to rape, like I
Yeah.
realized that there were a lot of people who shared my point of view. So it shocked me a little that someone would so outright like parang contra, diba? And so when
Yeah.
it came across that, I felt the need to reply on the sole basis that the person who replied to me was also a public figure, and I felt like it was very irresponsible on his part to like try to disperse that message elsewhere. So,
Yeah, kumbaga hindi pwede palagpasin, no? Especially na he's given a certain platform, and you also have that kind of platform as well to inform and educate more people as well. Speaking of like hindi pagpapalagpas, for Sen Kiko naman po, no? And I feel like you can attest to this kasi your generation, marami rin po kayong hindi pinalagpas talaga kasi a lot of movements were created during your generation. A lot of groups were established during your generation dahil yung mindset ng mga kabataan, hindi namin to pwedeng palagpasin. Do you feel like it will come a point na the younger generations will reach that point as well?
Definitely. Basta for as long as we are young, energetic, dynamic, so full of energy, people cannot not become like that. It's in the nature of the human, the youth as a human being.
Yeah.
And I think when I was in high school, diba? I was in the student council. I was in the student paper. I was with the student NCAA track and field team, NCAA volleyball team.
Yeah.
Uh, because no, but you know that's why. That's because when you're young, you have so much energy and so much, diba?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. That's why tayo for me is so important because it is a platform and a vehicle within which young people with so much energy can actually tap into that
Mhm.
energy and creativity and the zeal,
Yeah.
to make changes, di ba? To make changes. So every generation of young people, talagang
Yeah.
ako, talagang dapat dadating doon sa panahon na wala tayong papalagpasin bilang kabataan dahil kabataan
Yeah.
tayo, napakarami nating iniisip. In fact, yun ang palagay ko, isang dahilan bakit nga lumalabas itong mga mental health issues. Kasi naipit na sa cellphone, wala na yung mga, di ba? Wala na yung mga offline. Kaya nga sina Frankie noon, when she was in high school, sabi niya, volleyball, oh, go ahead, sige, do the volleyball thing. Tapos sabi niya, soccer, oh, go ahead, do the soccer. Because it has to. You have that energy and that zeal, and that has to be released. You know,
Mhm.
for you to be able to develop fully as a human being. So, ako, hinihintay ko yung generation ninyo, ipakita ng inyong gilas na alam ko, you won't let us down.
Correct. And that's very inspiring to hear, Sen Kiko, kasi I feel like a lot of young people are so tired at this point, so exhausted because ang dami nga naming information na nakakalap because of the platforms that we're having. And I feel like, I follow Kakie on Twitter, so nakikita ko rin minsan yung mga tweets niya kahit madaling araw na hindi rin makatulog. And parang yun din yung nararamdaman ng maraming kabataan ngayon because we are so bombarded with so many information. So, and that's very inspiring to hear na darating din sa punto na yung mga kabataan will reach that point na wala kaming papalagpasin and will really do something about it. Parang ganun.
Mm-hmm. I actually think that we're getting there.
Correct.
Like we're getting at a point where young people are so in tune on what's happening all around us. Like one small breaking news, alam mo yun, you just see it on Twitter, you see it on Facebook, breaking news post, then just go visit Twitter. There's gonna be a hashtag happening on that issue, on that topic.
Yeah.
And with
My
yes,
brothers.
It's okay. Actually, with that po, we will try to read some comments lang muna from the audience kasi ang dami pong comments actually na pumapasok. And some of them are questions, some of them are just mga comments lang, phrases kumbaga about the conversation that we're having. So meron po dito from Justin Cullion. Kakie sounds more matured than people twice her age. One day I could only hope to raise a daughter like her. So let it be known po na you're inspiring a lot of, I think parents siya, no, or siguro thinking of having a family in the future. So thank you so much for the wise words daw po. Ganyan. And of course here.
Sorry, here muna. I have one from Jasmine Estrada. So parang lahat ata kami nung sinabi nyo, Sen Kiko, yung lahat ng orgs, lahat ng activities nyo.
Nung college.
Dropping his hidden interests and hobbies. Hashtag sana all.
Opo.
When I think about it, grabe, ang dami ko palang energy, no?
Exactly.
Diba?
Ano kayo, major and extracurricular pala kayo dati, Sen Kiko?
Kasi, for some reason, I really, our school was 7 to 12. Half day kami, 12 or 12 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yung other half day, puro extracurricular activity. So I was sports and layout editor of the Lazette, which was our Lasagre News paper. And then nag-chairman pa ako ng Binibining Lasal pageant.
Kundarana.
No,
College.
No, in Kundirana, this is the story. I auditioned for Kundirana. Ano yung Kundirana? Yan yung yan yung Lasal Green Hill Glee Club. You don't know,
okay.
but you don't know Kundirana, but you know who came from Kundirana.
Sino po?
Gary Valenciano,
Oh, wow.
Pwede po bang
Mundo
sample?
Avanzado, Rani Raimundo. These are all Kundirana, Roel Santiago. So I auditioned, and I was accepted.
Wow.
But it was the thing. In Lasal noon, the policy was, if you join Kundirana, you have to drop all your other extracurricular activities.
Sabi niya, hindi
Yeah.
pwede. Kailangan
So,
renaissance man ako.
so in other words, I could drop all the sports, the editorship, even the student council. Diba? So I was,
Yeah.
kasi alam mo yung Kundirana nun, sikat na sikat.
Oo nga.
Isigawan yung mga
Heartthrob kayo. Sen, ang masasabi ko lang, Sen, hindi lang po si Miss Sharon ang megastar sa bahay nyo ngayon.
True.
But you know what? Just to complete the story. So I had to decide: would I choose Kundirana and drop everything else, or so it was a really big dilemma because it was my senior year. So I asked my advisor, "Mom, what do I do?" And then my homeroom advisor, si Miss Fahila, she passed away na
Oh my God.
a few years ago. But anyway, she said, "Depends. What do you want to do? Do you want to sing or do you want to serve?"
Wow.
Wow. Sing and serve po ba yung sagot nyo?
Sing or serve.
High School Musical.
So I didn't join Kundirana. I had to. So I chose to stay with serving in the student council.
Sen, para pala kayong si Troy Bolton na namimili kung basketball or ano, or theater.
Yun yung kwento, no?
Oh, alam mo yung musical, Frankie. Oy, hindi pa pwede sa iyo. Elementary ka pa lang. Grade school musical lang pwede mong panuorin.
I wasn't allowed to watch High School Musical till I was 14. And that's like,
Tapos, ginang ko si Miel. Ikaw naman, Miel, preschool musical lang panuorin.
all of my classmates, why haven't you watched High School Musical yet? Yung puro soundtrack lang yung pwede. Kasi yung music, pero yung movie dito pwede.
Yeah.
Ni dad ko, ano nagsasabi dun?
Wait, actually, speaking of High School Musical, since marami po tayong viewers ngayon, actually, Kakie, siguro hindi alam ng iba, pero di ba you write songs and you sing songs as well. Tama ba?
Yeah.
So ano naman yung feeling naman no, na you're still pursuing this passion and your parents are supportive of you sa pag-pursue ng passion na to?
I think my number one passion has always been writing kasi in general. So where
Okay.
like that could be songs, poetry, fiction, anything like that. And so like what's this? A lot of people don't know this, but my writing account on like Twitter is probably where I'm most unfiltered. It's like I'll tweet something on my main, and then there's always like a partner tweet that comes up right after that on my writing account or something that's a lot more marupok and like sabaw, you know? So like,
Yeah.
because I think that a lot of people tend to have this perception of me now because the tweets of mine that generally get a lot of attention are the ones that are very much like, you know, very, I think, how do I put it, very laban, which is like a good sport. But I think that now there's like this kind of weird perception of me where it kind of, parang I might be, I don't want to be naman also intimidating or because I'm not naman like that in real life, diba? At dinner time naman, I'm not naman spouting like constant, like
Spilling the tea, kumbaga.
yeah, always like, you know, spilling the tea na lang all the time because it's not naman me. So I think that it's, and my parents know how much I love to write, primarily because they're really great writers too. And so I think that it's really that, it's what keeps me awake. Like writing is what keeps me awake. Writing music, writing poetry, writing fiction. It's really what, yung parang, it's what I see myself being able to do no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the, what come what may. And so I think that
That's why she's enrolled in a literature as a literature major.
so
Yeah.
I think that's what's like driving me.
Literature din ang major ko before I went into law.
See, ang dami-dami.
Yun po yung prelo nyo. Yung prelo nyo. Wow. Ngayon ko lang nalaman yun actually, Sen.
AB English.
Mga racket nito.
My major was comparative literature, so French, African, South Africa, Japanese, Chinese, German.
So you share the passion of writing po talaga, no? And I guess si Sen Kiko kumakanta din kasi kumakanta din si Kakie. So marami pala kayo megastar qualities in your house.
Exactly. Parang kompleto na pala. Sen Kiko,
Ayan.
Kakie, we receive a lot of feedback na natutuwa sila with your banter and just siguro like a unique take on your private side. So we have another question from one of our viewers, from Dale. Ano pa ang favorite bonding moments nyo between father and daughter?
Mhm.
Singing daw.
Wine or beer night. Beer night or wine night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And then we listen to music. I share with her the music of my generation, and then she shares with me the music of her generation. She's an old soul.
Yeah.
She likes old 70s, 80s music. Ang favorite niya sa 80s, 70s music, yung ano, Andrew Gold, Never Let It Slip Away. Alam niyo ba yun?
I love that song. Cry to it all the time. It's in every single one of the playlists. Never let it slip away.
Talk
So that's-
to my baby on the telephone, long distance.
Yes. Go po, go lang kahit
Ayan
dalawang
po.
chorus.
Ano naman, yung wine night namin, I guess it also is a carryover from my own, when I was a kid, I mean younger, and I had bonding moments with my dad. Kami, mga magkakapatid, mahilig din kaming mag-beer muna before we go to bed with yung kanya-kanyang diba, with my dad. So I think it's also important for families to have these traditions that they pass on from generation to generation. Diba?
Yeah.
Importante yun because that's what families. Family traditions are practiced not just for the sake of the tradition, but for the sake of strengthening family bonds over generations. Diba? So I hope that one day my children will also pass on to their kids, diba, the tradition that my father started with us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sabi nga po ng generation namin, sana all.
Yes. We have one viewer who actually commented this one. So, it echoes what Senator Kiko said, na malaking bagay talaga ang impluwensya ng pamilya sa outlook ng buhay ng isang tao, whether for or against the ideas of the parents, or just like what you said, Sen Kiko, like the traditions, kumbaga, of creating a family that talks, that converses on, or even sings together. A lot of our viewers are actually asking for samples. So, ayun po, nasagot na po yung sample nyo, napakanta na po natin sila pareho.
Correct. Actually, may mga nagtatanong pa po ng book recommendations, pero hindi ko alam kung mahanap pa natin sa comments. Pero yeah, actually, very...
Sapiens.
You give three, and I'll give three.
And Weapons of Math Distraction.
It's about the algorithms.
Algorithm.
Okay, that's a good one. And then
one more. Well, now I'm reading 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Harari also. He wrote Sapiens.
Yeah. How about you,
Noted po.
Kakie?
How about you?
I think number one, right now I'm reading The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. I think it's really good. It's fiction, but it's beautiful. It's like the original. Because I think when Crazy Rich Asians came out, people had this huge. He's gonna get the book so that he can show it to people. I think when Crazy Rich Asians came out, people had this whole parang, the Asians like this. Parang, but I felt like it wasn't really a great representation of like East Asian culture. Because Crazy Rich nga sila, diba? So parang napaka unrealistic naman. So I think that a lot of people tend to overlook Amy Tan's books now. I haven't heard much discourse about it recently, but people need to read The Joy Luck Club. It's beautiful. It's so empowering also for women because it's about mothers and daughters. And then I love Carmen Guerrero Nakpil's autobiography. She's probably she's like one of my dream dinner guests. You know, when they say like 3 people from all of history to their life would watch, she's one of them.
Yeah.
So I really want like Carmen Guerrero Nakpil's Myself Elsewhere, like her 3-part autobiography. It's really, really good. And the last one is, if you haven't read The Little Prince, obviously that's a classic, but I find that the meaning changes every time I read it. And like as you grow older, every single time, like I've been reading it since I was siguro 5 or 6, but every single time I read it, I always get something new from it. So that's good.
I remember my professor in English in UP. sabi niya, he asked us to respond to an essay, write an essay on. Whenever I want to pick a new book, or read a new book, I pick up an old one.
Mhm.
Interesting. Here, this is one. Too bright.
You have to be a beauty guru.
Ayan, 21 lessons for the 21
For
lessons
the-
for
21st century.
Yeah.
for
21st.
21st.
This one I just finished. It's an old book, but it's about the Roman Empire.
Not a beauty guru.
It is a Roman, the classics.
Mhm.
The classics, Greek and Roman history, and then this one.
That's what he's reading. Wow, we spent so long on that. That's so funny.
Nakakatuwa po. Actually, hearing you, not just, we usually hear from you, Sen Kiko, as a legislator, but hearing you as a father, especially a close father to Kakie, to Miel, to Casey, and to Miguel. Nakakatuwa po. And I'm not the only one. We have viewers who are actually saying, pwede na daw po bang magpaampon sa pamilya ninyo? So, we
Marami
have
na pong Pangilinans in the country.
yes. So,
Naalala ko minsan,
we have another.
meron siyang paper sa grade 8 at
Which people?
yung parenting. Remember that?
Read it ba yun?
Yeah, we were in Mango. Basta parenting. So she had a paper that she had to submit about parenting, and she had to interview us. So she interviewed me. Her last question was, remember that? Yeah. The question was, is there something you feel you could have done better, as a parent?
Mhm.
What would you have done? So I said, I was busy. I was in the Senate. She was born. When she was born, she was 5 months old when I was elected the first time. So I said, I wish I could have spent more time, with you guys. Sabi niya, Georgie naman, you spend more time pa with us. Stalking na yun. Ano ba?
Correct.
Dinagdagan ko pa yung oras.
He's very good at time management. Very good at that.
So, Kakie,
I think for her, I guess the closeness really will. It's over time. You have to spend in the. You can't. You can't. Imagine one day that you have two kids if you don't.
Yeah.
Just pray, Lord.
For time and effort into it. But
Yeah.
for me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love being a dad.
Yeah.
Being a husband and a father is something I will not trade for anything in the world.
Yeah. Kumbaga, Sen, tulad ng sinabi nyo kanina, parang it's a lifelong process po talaga. No? Parang natututo kayo along the way. And,
That's right. That's right. And,
Yeah.
and there is no school to teach you how to be a parent.
yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get us wrong. We have very big fights. I mean, we get into these clashes, but it's part of growing up, and as long as you in the end, love conquers all.
Amen.
Amen, Sen. Wow.
So
Hashtag kilig.
and I remind you also, me and my dad before, talagang nagtataasan kami ng boses.
I think it's because we two were too alike, so that must mean that we're a little alike in that regard.
Probably. So, nagtataasan talaga, pero hindi ibig sabihin na wala yung pagmamahal. In fact, yun yung kailangan bakit tumataas ang boses. Dahil sa sobrang pagmamahal.
I wrote that thing. Yeah, I wrote that in the book, but in I said, like, the very premise of arguing implies that you care enough on the personal level about somebody. You don't fight with people you don't care about.
Yes.
Minsan, of course,
Hugot.
minsan sobra, hindi rin tama, di ba? Huwag namang sobra. Kailangan talaga.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also important when you make a mistake, when you fall short, say sorry. You be man enough to, sorry. mature enough, you woman up, you man up. Yeah. And I think the
So,
dog agrees. The dog is agreeing. Dog.
Yeah. Nagde-demo po yung dogs. Sumisigaw sila ngayon. Actually, sige. Yeah, go Trish.
So, Kaki, parang having spent and having a really close relationship with your dad, what's one of his advices? Alam mo yun, yung babalik at babalikan mo at hindi mo bibitawan na natutunan or na-advise sa'yo ng dad mo through the years that you've really enjoyed a close relationship with him?
Yeah.
There could just be one. What is the problem? There's just a lot. I think my dad's a great champion of constant, consistent prayer. He's a very God-fearing man, and I think that inspires me a lot to always, because I think prayer a lot of the time people tend to misinterpret it as just like asking God for things, but I like to think of it also as a time where you just there's a lot of self-reflection involved in. There's a lot of like principled self-reflection that's involved in that. Because as a religious person, I believe naman that God knows what's in my heart. It's just that He needs me to acknowledge it then. It's like as a person, I need to be able to acknowledge what I feel, what I desire, what my struggles are, etc., and like my fears, everything like that. Like I have to be the one to acknowledge it, to take charge of those things in my life, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. To like really devote time to that. Self-reflection.
Yeah.
My dad has long, lovely journals also, so I think he taught me the value of like that kind of writing. That's really like internal and like.
And I passed it on to all of them. Basic work, have a journal, write down the thoughts.
Yeah. Actually, Sen, that's what we want to ask you as well. Parang what's one advice that you always tell your kids, kumbaga, na parang up until your last breath, kumbaga, you will tell this kind of advice to them.
Family is everything.
Yeah. Love conquers all, and family is important. Family is central. And God, of course, God and family.
Yeah.
What else? Advice, pray, learn to pray. Love with all your heart. And fight. Be a fighter.
Yeah.
Dami na yun, ha?
Oh, that's really beautiful and inspiring at the same time. Thank you so much po, Sen, Kiko, and Kaki. Actually, parang gusto po namin i-extend ni Trisha yung conversation, pero baka pumapuyat tayo sa mga pag-uusapan natin tonight. So, unfortunately, we'd have to end siguro with one last question, and I think Trisha will ask the last question for the two people.
So, for our last question, it's not a question but more like a challenge. Bilang sikat na po ang distance education setup natin for DepEd, fill in the blanks lang po tayo. Ang kabataan ay blank.
Ay siyang magpapalaya ng bayan.
Grabe naman. Malalim.
Okay, top that.
Ay, wait, na.
Kidding.
Ang mitsa ng pagbabago.
Ganda.
Ang kabataan ang mitsa ng pagbabago.
Yeah.
Baba naman.
Kaki, no pressure.
No, I think
ang kabataan ay
magiging
or
malaya.
ang
Magiging malaya din.
magiging malaya.
ang
Ganda.
kabataan ay magiging malaya rin. Wow, thank you so much for those two closing statements. If you have any message to our viewers, to our audience, or to the Filipino youth, you have the floor po, Sen, Kiko, and Kaki.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to say this. That my public life, my public decisions, I will have to be able to defend it when I face my children. In other words, if I cannot defend my decisions and face them, I have no business doing it. Because in the end, we teach our children the difference between right and wrong. And so in our own public lives, we have to be able to,
Yeah.
We have to be able to say what is right and what is wrong and not muddle it.
And I'm
Otherwise,
always gonna hold you accountable.
otherwise what's my business being a father if I can't if I'm trying to teach my children right from wrong and I myself in my public life have have parang parang blurred the issue, the lines between right and wrong. Hindi pwede yun. Hindi pwede yun. Kailangan, siguro the teacher in me, no, na you cannot just preach. You just can't talk the talk. You also have to walk the walk.
Correct.
To be a
Yeah.
real, to be a real, to be believed. Diba? But hindi na ako papaniwalaan ng mga anak ko kung sinasabi ko ito tama, ito mali. Pero pagdating ko sa
Yeah.
ano ko, di ba? Puro kalokohan, puro mali. Di ba?
Correct. Yeah.
So yun. So in effect, they are actually my moral compass.
Ah, wow.
They're the ones
Yes.
that keep me from going astray because I have to live up to being, to being the, the teacher and the guide and the,
Sabi ko pa naman sinasabi na napakataas na ng moral standard sa bahay na to. Tapos kami pala yung moral standard. Kami
Back
din
to
pala.
you.
Napakataas pala ng moral standard. Hindi na maabot.
yeah, ayun lang. Sila talaga, sa kanila ako kumukuha at sumuhulot din ng aking.
Yeah. How about you siguro, Frankie? Message to the young people.
Yeah. Mahalaga ang ating.
Yeah.
Diba? Bigyan natin ng halaga. Of
Correct.
course, family can be different, di ba? But still, family is family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we also want to hear from Kakie. Kung may message ka to the young people, yung generation naman natin ngayon who are now doing what they've finished before yung older generations, kumbaga.
I probably said this a lot elsewhere, but I want to encourage everybody to kind of have those conversations with the people that you love, because I like to say this a lot. Like, I'm sure if anyone has ever seen like a thing where I talk, you probably heard this before, but I like to say that conversations are only ever difficult when they're essential. And so to have those talks with the people that you love, the people close to you, etc., it might seem tedious, it might seem hard, it might seem tiring, like a lot, diba? But that there's a reason why those conversations have to be had. It's because if we don't talk, if we don't start the discussion, if we don't talk about important things of importance, how are we ever going to make change? How is change ever going to happen without even starting? So I think I want to encourage a lot of people to engage in those conversations. They're very, very essential. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who watched, and I hope that everybody has a great evening, and I hope that everybody ate na.
Correct. Thank you so much, Sen, Kiko, and
Thank
Kakie.
you
Thank you
po.
for joining us. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much.
Salamat,
Thank you
salamat.
po.
Yes.
Stay
Good night po and stay safe.
Yeah,
Yes po.
Kayo
din po.
Buhay ang kabataan.
Yes. Salamat po, Sen, Kiko. Salamat po. Thank you po. Stay safe. Wow. Trish, di ako makapaniwala on the conversation that we just had tonight.
Right? Parang pwede bang
Mapapa-TikTok na lang tayo. As in,
Exactly.
ano siya, parang...
This night has been
Ay,
so
okay.
refreshing. Parang,
Yeah.
we talked about, kumbaga, hindi naman siya controversial topics. But these topics are really close to heart because we didn't just talk about young people. The beauty of this episode, we actually talked about family. We talked about generations. We
Correct.
talked about support systems. We talked about hobbies. Parang nakakatapalan ng puso na hindi pa, alam mo yun, hindi siya hiwalay. Hindi hiwalay ang hugot sa pamilya. Hindi hiwalay ang suporta sa kung anong gusto mong ipaglaban or whatever. Nakakatawa.
Yeah, and And actually, parang it's always good to be reminded of these things, the values that we have as human beings, as Filipinos, and of course, yung mga bagay na dapat pinaprioritize din natin in order for us to move
Yeah.
forward as a better nation, kumbaga. So, magandang napakinggan natin yung directly from the father and daughter tandem kasi parang na-remind tayo na parang posible pa pala no to create a generation of nation-loving young people kapag
Yeah.
maayos yung pagpapalaki natin sa kanila, maayos yung belief values and belief system na pinaniniwalaan natin. At the same time, yung love and yung idea kumbaga ng love and respect talaga ay araw-araw nating panghahawakan and paninindigan. So, wala, nakakataba lang ng puso na mapakinggan yung sinasabi nila, and actually nakakaiyak and nakakagaan ng loob kasi these are two important voices in our society now, and hearing those words from them na alam mo yun, sobrang reassuring lang for young people na wow, we can still do it, we can still make it. If they did it, we can still do it. Parang ganun.
And, kumbaga,
Hinga.
isang malaking hinga, no? Na nakakatuwa rin na sa batuhan ng dalawa, hindi, kumbaga, malamang, magtatay sila eh. Parang ako din, may magulang rin naman ako. There would always be, kumbaga they recognize the presence of may gasgasan.
Yeah.
Biglang tatawa si Kakie on the side kasi probably she remembers situations that have happened in their family.
Yep.
And yet, sa pamilya, kahit hindi pa yan, for those who are watching, yes, we recognize that not everyone have their nuclear families intact. Not everyone have families same as Senator Kiko and Kakie have, but there will always be families that we choose, and those are the families we consider friends also. And so nakakatuwa lang na napakita nila on how important families, chosen man yan, nuclear, biological man yan, is important in, kumbaga, support system eh. Alam mo yun, na parang, if there's anyone who would believe in you, it would be the very people that you consider family. And so for every young person,
that's why,
diba?
Yeah.
Sige,
That's
Von.
why super important no conversation natin sa mga nanood ngayon, and I feel like they're all feeling the same thing as well. Very important na narinig natin to. In a way, para it's also a validation for all of us believing in these things. So, thank you. And thank you to all our viewers who joined us tonight. Actually, parang we reached more than 500 live viewers or 600 live viewers in this episode. And very, very thankful po kami sa support nyo for this episode. And I hope marami rin kayong takeaways, kumbaga, na nakuha from Senator Kiko and Kakie as well. And don't forget to share this Facebook Live para your friends and your families can rewatch this. And don't forget to follow tayo on our different social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. All right.
Yes.
So,
And
actually,
we
may
just
final
like to
reminders pa tayo, Trish. Yes.
Yes, we just want to give a small shout out to some of our viewers. Guys, here, one of our favorites. Nakakatuwa naman talaga. We're talking about memes and Flash. Ayan. I love that we're talking about memes and we all instantly get the references. Exactly. So, hopefully, in the next few episodes that we'll have, kumbaga, guys, chill conversations. Chill conversations lang tayo.
Yeah.
Try to comment, ask questions. Your reactions, guys, we love when you start communicating with us. Also,
Yeah.
ang dami, guys, medyo madami kayo tonight.
Yeah. Thank you also to our friends. Yeah, yung friends namin ni Trisha who also are watching the Facebook Live now. So maraming salamat. And to our friends from the Thai Secretariat who are in the backstage helping us out for this episode. And of course to the staff of Senator Kiko and yung mga family and friends nila. Thank you also for making this episode happen. Maraming salamat po.
So if you want to hear more about Senator Kiko and Kakie, we're flashing their social media handles below, and also the Thai Awards Foundation's social media handles. So tonight we are closing in on our episode 3. If you want to revisit the whole conversation, this video will still be up and uploaded both on YouTube and here on Facebook. Hopefully, you join us next week on our episode 4. We'll be announcing our guests and our guests, our speakers, and our topic in a few days. So please watch out on our page. Hopefully, you enjoyed tonight. Good night, everyone. Good night,
Thank you,
Bon.
everyone. Good night. Good night, Trish. Thank you again. Salamat. Stay safe. Mwah.
Miyembro ka ba ng isang youth organization? May mga proyekto ba kayong nagawa o ginagawa ngayon para magbigay suporta sa mga kababayan natin sa panahon ng pandemya? Pagkakataon nyo nang sumali sa Search for 10. Miyembro ka ba ng isang youth organization? May mga proyekto ba kayong nagawa o ginagawa ngayon para magbigay suporta sa mga kababayan natin sa panahon ng pandemya? Pagkakataon nyo nang sumali sa Search for 10 Accomplished Youth Organizations Awards o TAYO. Ngayong ika-18 taon ng TAYO, nais namin bigyang pagpupugay ang bayanihan ng kabataang Pilipino. Bisitahin lamang ang tayoawards.net/jointayo, fill up ng form at isubmit. Maaari kayong mag-submit ng maraming entries hanggang August 18, 2020. Ang mga tatanghaling awardee ay makakatanggap ng 50,000 pesos na SEA Grant mula sa Coca-Cola Foundation Philippines at San Miguel Corporation. Ano pang hinihintay nyo? Tayo na!
If you're still here watching, you can join the Search for 10 Accomplished Youth Organizations. Our deadline, August 18. You can download the entry form here. We're flashing it now. Tada! Join the Search for 10 Accomplished Youth Organizations, Awards, Foundations, and join the Taya family. Good night, everyone!